I would love to, have you go back as far as you like in terms of what were the formative experiences that you have had along the way that have shaped you, and maybe who are the kinds of people who have shaped you, including the kind of job experiences you've had, which are quite diverse. Um, and because people are curious, how does somebody become Sameer? Yeah. How does somebody end up with a philosophy like this? How does that happen? It's not an accident. And so if you wouldn't mind telling us your story in your words, I would love to hear it.
I'd love to do that. I think there's three major components, and I'll touch on each of them. And they're maybe similar for many people. One is family upbringing, and the second is specific moments in my education, and the third, as you said, is some key moments in my career. In terms of my upbringing, I'm an immigrant from India, and my parents are a huge part of my journey, of course. Both my parents were refugees in 1947 when India gained independence from Great Britain and was split into, at the time, two countries, India and Pakistan. And the split was somewhat driven by religion. And if you were of the different religion, you had to move to the other country and basically move for the most people, as a refugee, jumping on a train at the last second, lives at risk. And so my parents moved from what's today Pakistan to India and to New Delhi, the capital. And my dad in particular, his family was just very destitute in general, lived in a refugee camp that was set up by the government in Delhi that became permanent. And he lived in that camp that became permanent from 1947 as a very young kid, 4 or 5 years old, till 1972, with his 6 siblings and parents. And it was a permanent 2-room structure. And he was the oldest in his family. And from living in that camp in 1972, he passed away in 2017 in the suburbs of New York City in Westchester County, and let's just say a very different environment. And without his effort,
Sorry that you lost him.
no, thank you, I appreciate that. Without his effort, we wouldn't be here. And he was fortunate enough to, first person in his family, go to college. A lot of these stories, walked 20 miles to college. There's a lot of people with these kind of stories. Learned English when he was probably 18 or 19. Got a job as a clerk at a small company we may have heard of called Citibank in India, and worked his way up to a professional role, management role, and then was able to leave the country with the company. We were born. I was a year old when we moved out of India, moved around the world in positions as an expat, and then shifted to another similar company called Chase Manhattan Bank, which ultimately became JP Morgan Chase. And they transferred him to New York in the 80s, which is when we moved here, and been here ever since. And his hard work, and that of my mom's as well, defined me. As I had sort of a traditional son-father relationship. I looked up to him, spent a lot of time with him. We played tennis. I would go visit his office in the summers when I was off from school. I'd carry his briefcase. Like, I had that whole thing. I wanted to be just like him. And as I became more aware and older, what I noticed is everything he did at work was so his family could do more than him and get ahead. And that included a lot of sacrifices. And honestly, a lot of, at times, I would just say, like, absorbed mistreatment, absorbed racism and things, and just quietly went about his job. And I'm sure I didn't appreciate it as a kid, but I did as an adult. It sparked in me a desire to not do more, but overcome kind of what he did, and truly sparked in me a desire to be an entrepreneur, because I said, like, I want to be my own boss. I want to be able to be the one making the decisions. I want to build an organization, and I want to treat people in a different way than he was treated, as the manager, as the leader. So it was a little bit, honestly, of probably a reaction to some of his struggles. Now, he did very well and all that, but I saw the struggle as a family member.
I appreciate you sharing the story about the journey of your dad. Um, because, I think about, him as a refugee in 1947, and then all of the things that he was able to accomplish from, from that beginning. Um, he must have been amazing.
Well,
Must have been amazing.
I, I think what I know he did, and I believe is one of the few things you can truly control yourself, is he worked hard. And that's seems like a cliche statement. Some people joke that it's out of fashion. I think it is the single thing you can control because generally speaking, it's something that you don't need to depend on anyone else to do. I tell our team here, I tell myself, like, we will not be outworked. Someone may have a better idea than us. We'll, of course, try to have a great idea. Someone may execute it better. Someone may have better luck than us, but we will not be outworked. And you always have a shot. If you're ahead, certainly to stay ahead, and if you're behind, to catch up. And there may be a lot of people in the country who don't love this, but that was the New York Knicks NBA playoff run to me. So they just were never out of it. Was it 29, 39 points down in that one game? I mean, they just were never out of it at the biggest stage.
Yeah.
And they just knew they could. They didn't give up at any moment. And that, like, he just worked hard. That was the default. And that was frankly the expectation of everyone in the family. And we try and pass that on to our kids as well.
Having empathy for what is it that they actually do, then, I've found that if I could honor the past and honor the work that they've been doing, they give me the license to make the changes.
I love talking about this stuff, and it's really important because you're building the future. You're helping people. Everything you said, we use slightly different words. It's all shared philosophy. And when I think to, this philosophy that I have around the empathy piece and clarity, and then building teams, what I love about the first part of it, starting there, empathy can have such a big impact because it's basically putting yourself in other people's shoes. So first of all, you're very user customer centric, which every organization should be. Everyone says it, not everyone is, right?
Right.
And then to the people you have in your organization, your stakeholders, your board, investors, teammates. And what I think it ends up doing is, because you put yourself in their shoes, you realize how you want to be treated, and that influences your behavior. You might improve your behavior. And then I think a big outcome of that first part of the philosophy is you find the right people. So that philosophy ties a little bit to, for me, find the right people, have them understand what's going on, and then set up a structure for them to succeed. So that empathy, like if I realize that I might have been treating someone in a bad way, then I don't ever want to act that way again. And I'm going to look for people that are also in that way. And I like to say at work, we all know intelligent people. I want people who are intelligent and good. So having empathy for everyone else helps me find good people, because most of the people I know are intelligent to begin with. And then I'm obsessed, as you are, and we've talked about, with clarity. So their people are now here, and they have spent less time here than you have because you hired them, and you explain to them what's going on in a way that as a human being, they get it. And then you set up the structure in the teams and get out of their way, be a great coach, be a great GM, whatever it is that you're doing. That kind of holds together and creates great outcomes. And, paired with it, I think these are aligned philosophies with different words. I have actually, right behind me, I have a little thing with words, like these 3 boxes that I asked someone to print out. And it gets to a lot of what you said, how Blackstone evolved, and the humility to think how they wanted to evolve going forward was tremendous, right? To say, we need people like Sandy here now despite our amazing success. So the three things there are dream in quantum leaps. There's always a move, and execution eats strategy for lunch. So like I look at that every day, right? So you dream big, you find the moves, and then you just execute. And I think it ties to what you said, dream even bigger and then act small. So this is why I want to hang out more and have lunch with you, because we're saying the same thing. We have our own words, right?
Yeah.
But it's basically the same philosophy. And I mean it, nothing is guaranteed in life, but I won't say it works. It increases the odds of success if you have this kind of philosophy.